You know the feeling. It arrives in the morning before you're fully awake. A heaviness. A sense that something is fundamentally wrong with you, though you can't name what. You scroll. Everyone else has figured it out. Everyone else is further along. Everyone else is enough. And you are still trying, still failing, still not there yet. You've achieved things, and it didn't help. You've improved yourself, and it didn't last. You've tried to fix what's broken. But what if you were never broken at all? Here's what nobody tells you. This feeling, this persistent, gnawing sense of inadequacy, isn't a bug in your psychology. It's a feature. A psychological structure that was built into you before you could speak, reinforced by evolution, weaponized by economics, and now running in the background of every decision you make, every relationship you enter, every moment you look in the mirror. What you're feeling is a rational response to systems, psychological, biological, economic, deliberately designed to make you feel inadequate. You are not broken, you are not weak, and you are not alone. In the next 60 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how this machinery works, the evolutionary traps, the economic incentives, the existential terror, and more importantly, how to stop playing a game you were never meant to win. This isn't another self-help video. This is the manual they didn't want you to have. This is you, seeing the cage. Close your eyes for a moment. Go back to the last time you achieved something you actually wanted, really wanted. Maybe it was a promotion you'd been chasing for 2 years. Maybe it was finally getting that person to text you back. Maybe it was hitting a fitness goal, finishing a project, buying something you'd saved for. Remember that moment when you achieved it. The relief, the validation, the brief shining sensation of, I did it, I'm enough now. How long did it last? A day, a week, an hour? And then what? The voice came back, didn't it? This isn't enough. You're not enough. What's next? And here's what makes this truly insidious. You think this is just how you are, your personality, your anxiety, your perfectionism. But it's not. In 1987, psychologist Tory Higgins published what would become foundational research in understanding inadequacy. His psychological review paper called Self-Discrepancy, a theory relating self and effect, identified 3 versions of you that exist simultaneously. The actual self, who you are right now, in this moment. The ideal self, who you think you should be, your hopes, wishes, aspirations. The ought self, who others expect you to be, your duties, obligations, and responsibilities. Higgins wrote, when the actual self is discrepant from either the ideal self or the ought self, a negative psychological situation exists. But here's the crucial finding. Different discrepancies produce different suffering. When you fall short of your ideal self, you experience dejection-related emotions, disappointment, dissatisfaction, sadness, depression. When you violate your ought self, you experience agitation-related emotions, fear, anxiety, guilt, shame. Your inadequacy isn't one feeling. It's multiple psychological wounds bleeding simultaneously. Let me give you an example. In the morning, you sit down to work on that project, the one that was supposed to be your thing, the novel, the startup, the creative pursuit that would finally make you feel alive. But it's been weeks since you touched it, months maybe. That heavy disappointment settles in. You're not the passionate, driven person you thought you were. Later that day, a friend texts, How's the project going? You lie. Say it's progressing. The anxiety hits immediately. Because they believed in you, they encouraged you, and you're wasting it. You're letting them down. Again. By nighttime, you're staring at the ceiling with both weights on your chest, the depression of unfulfilled potential, and the guilt of disappointing everyone who thought you were capable of more. Like Higgins said, this isn't a single wound. It's multiple lacerations, each one bleeding into the others. It's a choir of failures singing in harmony. Now imagine this. What happens when the gap between your actual self and your ideal self becomes infinite? In 1954, Leon Festinger, an MIT social psychologist who originated the theory of cognitive dissonance, introduced what he called the social comparison theory. Festinger's fundamental hypothesis: there exists, in the human organism, a drive to evaluate his opinions and his abilities. When objective standards don't exist, we evaluate ourselves by comparison to others. He wrote, "The tendency to compare oneself with some other specific person decreases as the difference between his opinion or ability and one's own increases. You naturally stop comparing yourself to people too different from you, but that natural break, that protective mechanism, no longer functions because you're not comparing yourself to your neighbor anymore. You're comparing yourself to everyone, everywhere, all at once. Your ideal self isn't just the best version of you. It's a composite of everyone's peak achievement, the billionaire's wealth, the influencer's appearance, the athlete's discipline, the artist's creativity. You are measuring your ordinary human life against the collective peak achievements of 8 billion people. And here's the thing about that measurement. You will always, always fall short. But the question isn't why you feel inadequate. The question is, why were you built this way? Why does your brain seem designed to torture you? Why can't you just be satisfied? Why does every achievement feel hollow within days? The answer is disturbing. You were never supposed to feel enough. You were designed to survive, not to be happy. Your brain is ancient machinery running in a modern world, and the same mechanisms that kept your ancestors alive are now making you miserable. Robert Sapolsky, Stanford neuroendocrinologist, spent 30 years studying baboons in Kenya, measuring their stress hormones and social hierarchies. What he discovered should terrify you. The most stressed baboons weren't at the bottom of the hierarchy, and they weren't at the top either. They were in the middle, constantly aware of those above them, constantly competing, never secure. Sapolsky writes, "Social status is not just about dominance. It's about control, predictability, outlets for frustration, social support." Sound familiar? You are that baboon. Every time you scroll social media, you're checking your position in the hierarchy. Every time you hear about someone's promotion, you're recalculating your rank. Every time you see someone's vacation photos, engagement announcement, or fitness transformation, your nervous system registers it as, they're above you, you're falling behind. This isn't a psychological problem. This is your biology working exactly as evolution designed it. Status anxiety is written into your nervous system. A 2020 meta-analysis published in Psychosomatic Medicine analyzed data from 34 studies involving over 200,000 participants. The finding, chronic social stress and perceived low status increased mortality risk by 32%. Let me be crystal clear about what this means. When you perceive yourself as inadequate, as lower status, your body treats it like a physical threat. Cortisol floods your bloodstream. Your immune system weakens. Your risk of early death increases. This feeling that you're not enough isn't just psychological, it's physiological. And even when you do achieve something, the satisfaction evaporates. Daniel Kahneman spent his career studying what he called the hedonic treadmill, our tendency to adapt to both good and bad experiences and return to baseline happiness. In Thinking, Fast and Slow, Kahneman explains, nothing in life is as important as you think it is when you are thinking about it. You finally get the promotion, the one you've been working toward for 2 years, the title, the salary bump, the validation. You walk taller, you update your LinkedIn, you tell your parents, you feel like you've finally arrived. Week 2. The novelty is wearing off, the new responsibilities are stressful, you're wondering if you're capable of handling them. Week 3. You see someone else got promoted to an even higher position. Your promotion suddenly feels smaller, less significant. Week 4. You're already thinking about the next level, already feeling inadequate at this new position, already wondering what's next. The goalposts moved. Again. We overestimate how much joy achievement will bring. We adapt. We normalize. We return to feeling not enough. Kahneman's research showed that lottery winners returned to their baseline happiness within months. Similarly, paraplegics, after the initial trauma, returned to their baseline within years. You are designed to adapt, to normalize, designed to return to feeling not enough. This isn't a character flaw, it's survival engineering. Imagine 2 of your ancestors. One is satisfied, content, happy with what he has. He stops hunting after a good week, relaxes, enjoys his life. The other is paranoid, dissatisfied, always scanning for threats and opportunities, never content, always wanting more, preparing for winter, stockpiling resources, comparing himself to others in the tribe. Guess which one survived? Which one's genes got passed down? The satisfied ancestor died out, got eaten, starved in the harsh winter he didn't prepare for. The paranoid, dissatisfied ancestor survived and passed down his genes to you. You are descended from 10,000 generations of anxious, dissatisfied, comparing survivors who couldn't rest. Our ancestors who stayed satisfied died out. The ones who survived were the ones who always wanted more, always scanning for threats and opportunities. Contentment was selected against. You are descended from paranoid, dissatisfied survivors who couldn't stop comparing themselves to their tribal rivals. Except now your rivals aren't 1,500 people. They're 8 billion. Here's where evolution meets economics. Because the same mechanism that kept your ancestors alive, constant comparison, perpetual dissatisfaction, endless striving, now makes you the perfect consumer. Richard Easterlin, economist studying happiness, discovered what's now called the Easterlin paradox. His findings, beyond a certain threshold, increased wealth doesn't increase happiness. Why? Because happiness is relative. Easterlin wrote, in the long run, happiness varies directly with one's own income and inversely with the incomes of others. Read that again. Your happiness depends not on what you have, but on what you have compared to others. This is the principle of relative deprivation. You don't feel poor because you lack food. You feel poor because your neighbor has more than you. And in the age of global comparison, everyone is your neighbor. But here's what they don't tell you. This isn't just modern anxiety. This started before the algorithms, before capitalism, before you even understood language. This started the first time you reached for love and found conditions instead. You're 3 years old. You fall. You scrape your knee. You cry. Your parent has 2 choices. Choice 1. They hold you. They say, I know it hurts, child. I'm here. No judgment, no condition, just love. Or choice 2. They say, come on. You're fine. Stop crying. Big kids don't cry. Or worse, they ignore you entirely. In choice 1, you learn something fundamental. I am worthy of comfort. My pain matters. I can be loved exactly as I am. In choice 2, you learn something different. My feelings are too much. I must hide my pain. I must earn the right to be cared for. This moment, and thousands like it, carved pathways into your developing brain. This is where inadequacy begins. In moments before language, before memory, before you had any defense against them, John Bowlby spent decades studying what he called attachment theory, the templates for love created in your first relationships. He discovered these early experiences create what he called internal working models, mental blueprints that shape how you see yourself and others for the rest of your life. Bowlby wrote in his trilogy, Attachment and Loss, intimate attachments to other human beings are the hub around which a person's life revolves, not only when he is an infant or a toddler or a school child, but throughout his adolescence and his years of maturity as well, and on into old age. Think of it like the foundation of a building laid first, underground, invisible, everything built on top, every floor, every wall, every room. Depends on that foundation. Your attachment patterns are your psychological foundation laid before you were 3 years old, before you could examine them, before you could choose them. And everything you've built on top, your relationships, your career choices, your ability to trust, your capacity to rest, is shaped by that invisible foundation. But what happens when that foundation is cracked from the beginning? Mary Ainsworth, expanding Bowlby's work, identified 4 attachment patterns formed in childhood. Secure attachment. I am worthy of love. Others are trustworthy. Anxious attachment. I must earn love. Others might abandon me. I am never enough. Avoidant attachment. I must not need others. Vulnerability is dangerous. I must be self-sufficient. Disorganized attachment. Love is terrifying. People who love me also hurt me. I am fundamentally unsafe. Which pattern are you living from? Because that pattern is running in the background of everything you do. Every relationship you choose. Every risk you avoid. Every time you feel not enough. Carl Rogers drew a crucial distinction in his book, On Becoming a Person. Unconditional positive regard versus conditional regard. Rogers wrote, when the individual has no awareness of such unconditional positive regard, then every self-experience is evaluated in terms of the conditions of worth which he has taken over from others, and only those experiences which meet these conditions are valued positively by the client. Let me explain. Children who receive unconditional love simply for existing develop genuine self-worth. Children who receive conditional love based only on achievement, compliance, or performance develop what he called a false self. If you were praised for success, but ignored when you hurt, you learned your worth lies in performance, not existence. If you were loved when compliant, but rejected when angry, you learned parts of you are unacceptable. If you were made responsible for your parents' emotions, you learned you exist to fix others, never to simply be. And here's the cruelest part. You don't even remember most of these moments. You don't remember being 3 years old and learning that crying was too much. You don't remember being 5 and realizing that your parents smiled more when you succeeded than when you simply existed. But your body remembers, your nervous system remembers, and it's still responding to those moments every single day. You're at a family dinner. You're exhausted. You had a terrible week. You just want to go home. The true self wants to say, I need to leave. I can't do this right now. The false self says, I'm great. Everything's fine. And you stay for 3 more hours, performing, dying inside. Why? Because the true self learned long ago it wasn't acceptable, that showing need meant losing love, that being real meant being rejected. So the false self took over, the mask that smiles, the version that says, I'm fine, even when drowning, the performance that protects the real you by hiding you. And you've been doing this so long, you've forgotten which one is the mask, and which one is your face. Donald Winnicott, the British psychoanalyst, understood this mechanism. He wrote, "The false self has one positive and very important function, to hide the true self, which it does by compliance with environmental demands. You spend the rest of your life maintaining the mask, trying to be enough, performing to earn what should have been free. You're still the child who learned that love is conditional, and now you've internalized the condition. But here's where it gets sinister, because the same wound that made you feel inadequate as a child has been discovered, studied, and has been weaponized to profit off you as an adult." Your inadequacy isn't just psychological, it's profitable. Byung-Chul Han, Korean-born German philosopher, has spent his career studying what he calls the achievement society. In the burnout society, Han argues we've moved from a disciplinary society, where external forces control you, to an achievement society, where you exploit yourself. Han writes, "The achievement subject stands free from any external instance of domination, forcing it to work, much less exploiting it. It is lord and master of itself. Thus, it is subject to no one, or only to itself. However, the abolishment of domination produces self-compulsion." Read that again. The abolishment of domination produces self-compulsion. Your grandparents worked in factories. They had bosses, time cards, external discipline, a whistle that told them when to start and when to stop. If they wanted to resist, they knew exactly who they were resisting. The foreman, the owner, the system. But you're the worker and the boss, the prisoner and the guard, the slave and the master. No one is forcing you to work at midnight. No one is making you check email on Sunday. No one is holding a gun to your head telling you to be more productive, more optimized, more successful. You're doing it to yourself. And this makes you more exploitable than any factory worker ever was. Because when your grandparents left the factory, they left work behind. When you close your laptop, work follows you. It lives in your phone, in your thoughts. There is no escape because the prison is internal. Han calls this auto-exploitation. You exploit yourself more efficiently than any external system ever could because you believe it's your choice. You believe it's your ambition. You believe it's self-improvement, but it's not. It's inadequacy, weaponized and internalized, running 24/7 in the background of your consciousness. You are your own slave driver, your own surveillance system, your own harshest critic telling yourself that you're not enough. And capitalism loves this, because think about what happens when you feel inadequate. You feel inadequate, you seek solutions, you consume products, you get temporary relief. Inadequacy comes back stronger. Repeat. The solution reinforces the problem. The cure perpetuates the disease. Because a person who feels inadequate is a person who buys the fitness program, the self-help book, the productivity app. Modern capitalism doesn't want you to feel adequate. Erich Fromm, a German psychoanalyst who fled Nazi Germany, studied the psychological effects of capitalism and understood this mechanism decades before the internet. In his book, To Have or to Be, he argues, "The system requires you to live in having mode, where your worth comes from what you possess, because being can't be monetized. Your worth comes from what you possess, because being, simply existing as you are, can't be monetized. You can't sell someone contentment with themselves, but you can sell them the promise of becoming someone worthy." The global self-improvement market was valued at $43.77 billion in 2022 and is projected to reach $86.52 billion by 2032. $86 billion. Let that number settle. That's not the self-improvement market. That's the inadequacy maintenance market. Because here's what they'll never tell you. If self-improvement actually worked, this industry would collapse. Think about it. If the productivity app actually made you productive enough to stop feeling inadequate, you'd cancel your subscription. If the course actually transformed your life permanently, you'd never buy another course. If the self-help book actually fixed you, you'd stop buying self-help books. The industry requires your continued inadequacy to survive. The relief never lasts, not because you're broken, not because you're not trying hard enough, but because the system requires your emptiness to function. This is by design, not conspiracy, but economics. But the self-improvement market is almost quaint compared to what came next. Because in 2004, something happened that turbocharged the inadequacy economy beyond anything previous generations experienced. Social media arrived, and it didn't just sell you products to fix your inadequacy. It became an inadequacy generation machine, running 24/7, optimized by algorithms, scaled to billions of people. Feeding on the same wound that was carved into you as a child, Dr. Jean Twenge analyzed data from over 500,000 adolescents. The findings were stark. Teenagers who spent 5 or more hours per day on electronic devices were 71% more likely to have suicide risk factors than those who spent less than 1 hour per day. The algorithm isn't neutral. It's not just showing you content. It's learning what makes you feel inadequate and showing you more of it. Shoshana Zuboff coined the term surveillance capitalism. In the age of surveillance capitalism, she writes, "Surveillance capitalism unilaterally claims human experience as free raw material for translation into behavioral data. You are not the customer, you are the product. Your attention is what's being sold. Your psychology is what's being manipulated. Your inadequacy is what's being manufactured." Zuboff writes, "This new form of capitalism is not about producing goods and services, but rather about behavioral modification at scale. When you feel bad about yourself, you scroll more. When you scroll more, you see more ads. When you see more ads, someone profits. Your suffering has a business model. Adequate people don't endlessly consume. Adequate people don't constantly seek external validation. Adequate people are bad for business." But there's something even more fundamental happening, something that turns comparison into a kind of psychological apocalypse. Barry Schwartz, a psychologist who spent his career studying decision-making, wrote, "The paradox of choice, based on a disturbing observation. More options make us less happy." Schwartz writes, "Learning to choose is hard. Learning to choose well is harder. And learning to choose well in a world of unlimited possibilities is harder still, perhaps too hard." Why? Imagine you lived 500 years ago. There were maybe 3 potential partners, 2 career paths, 1 life trajectory. Choice was limited. Now there are infinite versions of everything. You're not just inadequate compared to who you are. You're inadequate compared to every version of yourself you could have been, and will never be, because every choice becomes an opportunity for regret. Every path not taken is a life you could have lived. Schwartz explains, with so many options to choose from, people find it very difficult to choose at all, and when they do manage to make a choice, they are less satisfied with the outcome than they would be if they had just a few options to choose from. Imagine a person who turned down a scholarship to study abroad. Years later, they wonder, who would I be if I'd gotten on that plane? Would that version of me finally be enough? Probably not, because he'd be wondering about the version that stayed home. You're left with what Schwartz calls counterfactual thinking, imagining the alternatives, and in your imagination, the alternatives are always better, because you only see the highlights of the other paths. You don't see their costs, their compromises, their regrets. There is no winning path, and now you get to see everyone else's alternate paths too. Your ex is married with kids. A stranger online quit their job and lives on a sailboat. Another stranger makes 6 figures working 4 hours a week. You are comparing yourself to 8 billion people, times all the versions they could have been, times all the versions you could have been. Infinite selves, infinite comparisons, infinite inadequacy. This is the comparison apocalypse. And everyone is doing this. Everyone posts their best self to compensate. The highlight reel, the confident facade hiding the counterfactual torture. Your highlight reel becomes someone else's regret. Their highlight reel becomes your regret. But why does it hurt so much? Why does inadequacy feel not just painful, but existentially threatening? Why does it feel like death itself? Because it is.